Hey guys, happy Friday to you. We're looking forward to another YouTube live with you. And today's got a really special theme here right off the bat. We're going to be talking to you guys about nailing your entry strategy, and we're going to get into that in just a minute. We've got some really good things, and it's for people who don't own a business and for people who do own a business. We're going to talk about both. We're going to nail the opportunity for all of you guys. So really looking forward to it. Carl, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Adam. Happy Friday to you. And if you're in the UK, it's Good Friday. So do you have Good Friday in the US?
We do. I know a lot of people are off. The stock markets are closed. People are, doing their own thing. But we're here, and we're here to talk to you guys today, answer your questions, which is great. As always, feel free to nail it right in the chat in the YouTube live. Ask us anything, and we'll try to get to your questions. So looking forward to it.
Adam, it's 4:02 p.m. in the UK on Friday, and I think it's the 10th of April today. Permission to drink a beer.
Permission granted, my friend.
One of my favorite beers today, it's Lauenbrau. It's a German Pilsner from Bavaria, from Munich. So it's one of my favorites. I was in the supermarket day before yesterday, and they had a big case of it on special. So I thought, I'm having one of those. So got the case, put it in the fridge, and I've saved cracking the first one to today. So cheers, everybody. If you're in your garden watching this, and it's sunny in the UK today, it's about 22 degrees. So if you're on the drinking hour, wherever you are, then let's all have a beer as we go through this. My first one of the day.
Well, very good. Sounds like you're going to be well, or looks like you're going to be well on your way to number 2, from what I can see. No, looking forward to the weekend. I know it's a big weekend for many people. But here we are, still a few weeks into the broader uncertainty we're all facing right now. But I think we've been talking about it, and the theme's been pretty consistent between you and I. We couldn't be more optimistic about where things are going and the opportunities that are out there. I know just within our own kind of private equity group and the partners we work with there, we've got well over 150 deals active in our pipeline. So we're certainly making moves, and we're happy for it. And we're hoping you guys are taking the same kind of action. So today we're going to kick off with really the kind of title theme of today before we get into open Q&A. It's nailing your entry strategy, Carl. And like I said from the top, we've got 2 real groups of people we're talking to. We're talking to the person who's never owned their own business, and the people who do own their own business, and maybe multiple businesses. Yeah. So each one has a different kind of opportunity to nail their entry strategy. Let's go ahead and start with the people who have never owned a business.
Yeah, so we talk a lot about exit strategies, which is once you buy a business and you grow it, who do you sell it to? How do you sell it? That's all great, but without an entry strategy, you're never going to buy a business to be able to scale it and grow it. And to Adam's point, you're either going to own a business right now, which means if you buy another business, that's called a bolt-on acquisition or a roll-up, if you're going to buy more of one. Or if you don't own a business right now, what does your entry strategy look like? And there's 2 elements to an entry strategy. And if you've been watching Adam and I for a while, or you've been through any of our training or any of our webinars, you see all the time we talk about something called the perfect deal making triad. So it's a triangle. If I was in my office, I'm in my my media room in my house. If I was in my office, I'd show you on a flipboard. But basically, the perfect deal making triad has got 3 elements to it. Number 2, we talked about last week, which is finding a motivated seller of a good business. Number 3 are the financial characteristics of the business for you to do an LBO. But number 1 is always the most important thing, is what type of business do you want to buy and why? So there's 2 questions there. The why if it's your first business, is actually the most important question, because nobody, and don't think I'm crazy and I've had too many beers here, but I just want to throw something at you. Nobody wants to buy a business. Nobody wants to own a business. What you want are the benefits of business ownership. That could be cash flow, wealth creation, work-life balance, pride, building a legacy, ego in some cases, going from employee to employer. Those are all the benefits, the deep emotional benefits that need to drive you into making that decision to go out and buy a business. So owning a business gives you benefits. The feature is actually going and acquiring that business. And then once you've made that decision, what your why is, whether it's to make more money, to have more time, to build a legacy, it could be all of those things. Then you've got to ask yourself, what type of business should I buy? And we say this all the time. It's for your first deal, you really need to stay in your lane. So if, let's say you've worked for IBM for 10 years, then it would make sense for you to go and buy a business somewhere in the technology industry, because you know the industry, you know how it works, you're going to have some skills that you can deploy into the business, and you're going to have a network that you can leverage to add value into the business that you buy. So if you're an IBM person, why would you go and buy a restaurant, or why would you go and buy a boutique hotel, or why would you go and buy a retail store? You wouldn't. You would stay in your lane. So the other thing is, buy a business that you can be passionate about, because it's one thing buying a business, but then once you own that business, whether you're the owner manager going in and running that business every day, or you're the owner investor, like how Adam and I play, you still want to have some passion for that kind of industry, to have the strategic kind of rationale to want to grow it before you then sell it. So these are some of the questions that you need to be asking yourself to define, what is your entry strategy? And your entry strategy is going to be different to anybody else that you speak to, because there's so many businesses out there to buy. We can be highly selective in the types of deals that we want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And it comes down to understanding, especially if you've never owned a business before, you don't necessarily believe you've got the chops. Well, you do. You can just leverage your existing experiences and plug those into the direction you're heading, right? So if you just imagine yourself, say you're an accountant, which I used to be, right? You've got a big advantage and you can look at financials of anything. You're going to understand how to analyze the business, see the health of the business, what drives the business, that kind of stuff. But not everyone's got a broad brush skill set. And people often ask, well, I only work in a retail environment or a B2C environment, and you say I should go find B2B businesses. Well, generally, sitting behind any B2C business is a whole army of B2B businesses that underpin and support that business. Like, for example, hey, I'm a public school teacher for insert whatever subject. What kind of business can I own? I'm not going to go teach or buy a private school necessarily, but you can, right? And I'm not saying you go buy an actual K through 12 school that's got 700 kids and a whole bunch of donors and alums. And I'm not suggesting that. If that's what you want, great. But there's no reason why you can't go out and buy a really good daycare. Daycares have really strong, consistent revenues. And depending on where you buy, especially in urban areas, you're talking about really strong margins. Sitting behind daycares is all kinds of educational programs. People who are building education curriculum for schools and other online learning businesses, developing custom curriculum to custom needs, right? These are great businesses that you as a teacher who know what the end user needs to learn and understand, you can pivot from what you know as a professional into businesses that match your understandings and skill sets. You're going to know what the ultimate end user needs. So how to best supply it without necessarily being the conduit to deliver it straight through, right? You're using a distributor. In this case, it could be a daycare, it could be a private school, it could be anything, right? So there's plenty of these businesses out there. And so the idea is that if you're, if you're in something that you don't feel translate, odds are you're not looking hard enough at your own skill sets and what you've built and defined and how you can apply that to the type of business you want to buy. Everyone's got the opportunity if they've got a few years of work experience. If you've never worked anywhere in your life and you've got no practical experience, it's going to be hard to jump in and buy a business. Once you've got a couple of years of life and work experience, and for some of us, Carl with the old gray hairs over there and me losing my hair, we've got enough experience and age to know what we can and can't get into. And for us, we're pretty agnostic. We can pretty much go into any industry and feel pretty comfortable. But not everyone has that skill set just yet. And for those who can narrow it in on the things that they're comfortable with, confident with, and their current existing skill sets translate to, you're going to be very successful in finding the right business for you. Anything to add, Carl, before we move on to existing business owners, which is a whole nother world of opportunity?
Yeah, I think one of the other things to kind of layer into your kind of entry strategy is you need to determine whether you want to be an owner manager or an owner investor. We touched on this before. So one of the things that you need to figure out when you're buying a business is location. So if your desire is to leave a corporate 9-to-5 and go and run a business that you've acquired, once you've acquired it, then clearly that business needs to be close to where you live or where you want to live. So if you live in Boston and you want to stay in Boston, then clearly you need to buy a business that's within a sensible commuting distance of where you live. But if you want to move to LA, then go and buy a business in LA, because then that makes the relocation strategically even more relevant. But if you find a business to buy in LA, but you don't want to live there, then you'll have to be an owner investor. And remotely managing a business is a lot easier than you think, providing that you install a general manager to run that business for you, and then they do all of the daily kind of tactical operational stuff, leaving you remotely to act more as like a chairman or like as an investor, doing the strategic stuff, and then probably doing even more deals as well. So that's one of the things you need to figure out, because there's no shame wanting to go in and be the GM of a business. I don't do that. Adam doesn't do that. We have GMs in all of our businesses that we own, both individually and collectively through our PE fund. But you can follow that model, or it's totally cool for you to go in and run the business if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's all about what motivates you and what your passions and kind of ending expectations are. For Carl and I, we want to own a portfolio of businesses, companies around the world and diversified across industries. It protects our upside, protects our downside, and ensures we've got kind of maximum opportunity across our investments. But that's not for everyone, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that. So, but pivoting, Carl, let's talk about business owners for a minute, right?
Yeah.
Business owners have a whole nother set of challenges, right? I've got an existing business with existing employees and existing customers and existing relationships, and the ability to say, okay, I want to do something cool. I want to double my business in a day. Little teaser there. But I want to double my business in a day. How can I do it? Well, the day you double your business is the day you acquire a bolt-on to combine with your existing business to expand it. Now, that's not the only way you can expand your existing footprint and build your business empire as an existing business owner. There's so many opportunities you have. And so, Carl, if you just want to jump in first, and I'll come behind after, but the existing business owner, to determine their entry strategy, it's almost laid out for them.
Yep. So there's three ways you can grow any business. The first way is just organically grow. So get more products, get more customers, generate more leads, hustle and grind and grind and grind and just keep going. Or you can partner with other people. So you can have affiliates, or you can do joint ventures with other people. Or the fastest way to do it, the most profitable way to do it, is if you own a business, go and buy another business and combine the two together. So there's three types of businesses that you should buy. The first one is you can just buy a competitor. So if you make engineering components for cars, just go and buy another automotive engineering component manufacturer, and then you're doubling your market share. The second type of business that you could buy is you could buy something in your supply chain. So if you make auto parts, can you go and buy one of your suppliers or one of your partners and extend your presence and your power inside of your supply chain and capture more of the margin, more of the profit that's running through that entire supply chain? But the most common acquisition that companies do is they buy complementary businesses which give them access to either new customer streams, new products and services, or entirely new markets. And this is what the big boys do. This is how I learned my trade, doing mergers and acquisitions on Wall Street. And then when I worked for Hewlett Packard, for HP to grow from a $100 billion business to a $120 billion business, it's not just about making more printers and making more PCs. We had to go out and buy other companies that we could plug in to what we're doing. But imagine you own a small software company. So you own that company, and a great acquisition for you would be to go out and buy, say, an IT services company. And then what you can do, the software company, you have software and customers. Your IT services company, you have IT services and customers. And then what you can do is you can sell the software to the IT services customers. You can sell the IT services to your software customers. That's called cross-selling. So it's a 1 + 1 + 1 = 5 on the revenue side. And then as you bring those two businesses together and you combine them, there's a whole bunch of costs that you can take out from consolidating those operations. So buying another business gives you more revenue, more customers, it gives you more cash flow, and it also can give you more talent to bring into your business to continue to help you grow. So those are the reasons why not only HP and IBM and Cisco and Amazon are buying all these other businesses, it's what small businesses are doing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's all about thinking creatively within that space, right? It's not necessarily, hey, I'm a contractor, I'm buying the guy who's got the exact same thing down the road, I'm buying his. It's thinking up and down as well, right? Horizontal integration, vertical integration. Vertical, if I'm that same contractor and I'm doing general construction work, renovations, additions to homes, things like that. Well, what kind of supplies do I need all the time? Am I getting 100% of my stuff from Home Depot or major, home warehouses and things like that? Or am I getting it from other suppliers, lumber yards and things like that? Concrete suppliers or cabinet suppliers or any of that kind of stuff. So if you're a contractor doing a bunch of renovations, you don't just have to look at other contractors to expand your opportunity. You have to look at your entire supply chain upwards and what can you acquire that's going to help your core business, but also give you the opportunity to expand beyond it. For me, if I'm that contractor, what am I doing? I'm saying, listen, I'm going to go buy the guy who's making all the granite countertops in all the homes, right? It's just an example. But I'm going to go buy the guy who's doing the granite work because guess what? All my other competitors are buying granite from that guy. And when they want to sell their business, they already know I have a contracting company and the granite company. They're going to want to come to me and say, listen, hey, I'm ready to retire. I'm looking to get out of this. I'm going to sell my contracting company. And you're like, great, I'm just going to now add it to mine. So this is exactly the situation where 1 + 1 + 1 = 5. Because now I'm going to own 2 contracting companies, which are doubling my staff, doubling my resources, doubling my revenues, doubling my profits, if not more, because of synergies. Oh, and by the way, I still own the hub, which is introducing me and keeping me connected to the broader market. And that same model is rinse and repeatable in pretty much every industry. Everyone is selling to everyone in some capacity. And who do you know and what verticals and how do you know it? Even if you're someone who's a restaurant owner, and listen, restaurants, they're hard space right now, and we understand it. Carl and I own an interest in a small restaurant here in Baltimore. It's a tough place to be in, but you have to think holistically. yes, the major suppliers like Cisco or US Foods or people like that are doing the major supply for your business, but they're not doing all of it. And there's other things that are tangential to every industry that gives you an opportunity. The last, and this is probably Carl's least favorite integration of all, is whenever I, as a former reclaimed, saved bean counter, if you will, in many respects, if I ever want to look at a business as a business owner or otherwise for opportunity, I simply pull out the profit and loss statement and I look at every single expense line item. Why? Because that means I'm paying someone else for whatever lives in there, which means that's an opportunity to go buy one of those companies. So think about it. You've got a full financial statement. You're a business owner. You've seen these before. You've got your auto expense, you've got repairs and maintenance, you've got insurance, you've got literally everything in there. There's nothing stopping you from going down that list and finding something to integrate with. It's anecdotal, I know, but to me, the number one most common form of vertical integration that people do using the method I just described, and Carl doesn't love it, it's buying the real estate in which your business operates in. And the reason I say that is you got to pay rent to somebody, you may as well pay yourself. Now, I'm a believer in real estate. I'm a big fan of having that kind of hard assets in addition to kind of my business portfolio and things like that. And I'm not saying Carl here hates real estate. Carl certainly owns it, sitting in a beautiful home right now. But the idea there is that if you're struggling to think about which way and which direction to take your business, you just have to look at your own financial statements to have all the ideas in the world. They're right there in front of you.
And you know what's so good about that is you and I were literally talking about this an hour ago. So we, for our Proct private equity group, we're looking right now at acquiring a CPA firm, because we were thinking the other day, we're spending all of this money on CPAs to both help us do due diligence on our new acquisitions, do all of the taxes and the accounting and all that stuff in the businesses that we own. So we're saying, why don't we just go buy a CPA firm? Instead of giving all this money to all these other people, let's give it to ourselves in our own business. And you know what's also great about buying a CPA firm? What will that CPA firm have? Loads of small business customers. So we've got as much deal flow as we're ever going to want from these businesses. So yeah, great example, great idea.
Yeah, and it's all about thinking creatively, right? I mean, there's no magic bullet to any of this. It's just stepping back, slowing down, and thinking creatively. So anyways, guys, that is the entry strategies for both business owners and non-business owners, first-time buyers. And listen, we're thrilled you guys are on your deal-making journey, and we're excited for it. I do want to say, hey, guys, thanks, Frederick and Linda. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate your questions. If anyone else has questions for us, just drop them in the YouTube chat here, and we'll get to them as we can. First one here from Frederick. Hi, joined last week. Side note, thanks for joining. Glad you're with us. He's been talking to a couple wealth managers this week in the UK. How would you compensate a wealth manager? A finder's fee? If so, how would you structure it? Carl?
So with a wealth manager is going to get the money from the seller of the business. So a wealth manager, if they're promoting one of their clients to introduce you, they're the seller, you're the buyer, any money that the seller is then going to receive either from a closing payment or from seller financing payments, the seller is then going to need to invest that money somewhere. So that's where the wealth manager will make a commission. I've never paid like a finder's fee to a wealth manager. I've done it for other people, but never a wealth manager. Maybe that's something that we should start doing, but I've never had the need to do it. They've always brought me clients in droves because they know as soon as that business sells, they're going to have money to invest, and that's how they make their money in what they do.
Yeah, and to potentially give a less it depends answer to some degree there, Carl, is is finder fees generally look in one of two ways. They're flat fees, like, hey, it's 10 grand or 25 grand or something like that, depending on the size of the business, or it's some percentage of the total transaction value. Those are generally what we see in terms of finder fees. Again, you don't necessarily have to pay it. If it's a client who's looking to sell and they're referring, they know they're going to see a lot of liquidity coming back to their client. If they're tied in with their client's taxes or other financial planning, they should see some advantages in terms of their business relationships with their clients as a result. So wealth managers, like Carl said, we typically don't see finder fees with. Finder fees are most common with like other intermediaries. The like brokers of brokers is where I see it the most, where someone's doing your kind of digging for you. And oftentimes what I'd say to that is you can do your own research and your own Googling. I don't know if you need someone to do that for you. But if that's someone you're looking to have supplement in your search, more power to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if there is a bird dog, as we technically call them, out there, and they've got a trusted relationship with a seller, and they can potentially bring you this off-market deal and leverage their relationship into it, then that could be an extremely valuable connection. But if you're paying them a fee, if you're paying them a finder's fee, make sure that fee is contingent. You don't want to be paying that before you close. You want to be paying that fee after you've closed. So make sure whatever that fee is, whether it's half a percentage point of the total deal or 1 point or a flat fee like 5K, 10K, just obviously make sure that that's baked in to your total financing when you're looking at what the overall cash flows need to be for you to close.
Yeah, absolutely. Next question, Linda. We'll get to some of our other questions we've got via email and otherwise. Linda says, please discuss the new game rules, best practices for business valuations, given the broader uncertainty of today. Also, valuation gap widening with seller optimism that things will return to normal versus buyer's view that it's not so. So I guess just to reframe that, then the second part of that is, what happens when a seller thinks, oh, I'll bounce right back, and we as buyers are going, I don't think so. So overall, just speak a little bit about what you see as the kind of new game rules or best practices for business valuation in today's age.
Yeah, so I think there's two parts to that. I think the first part is in tangentially, you've got to look at, what type of business are you going to buy, and how can you buy that business and then pivot it into some of the amazing growth opportunities that we're seeing through this pandemic. So can you go and buy a clothing company and then switch to manufacturing PPE or other medical type garments that the world's in massively short supply of? Can you go and buy a small manufacturing company and then pivot into this booming supply chain for medical devices, and medical equipment? So I think part of it is, finding the right opportunity where you've got that distressed seller that doesn't want to pivot, wants to sell. You want to come in, you see an opportunity to get into the marketplace, or it's a business that's already doing very, very well, like an online business or something in freight and logistics or in IT. All these businesses are going crazy right now. And then I think the second point is, when you talk about valuation, I'm less concerned, Adam, about the valuation of a business. People get really hung up on, is it a 2 times multiple? Is it a 2.5 times multiple? What's the multiple? And then also, what is the profitability that I'm multiplying? Am I taking a 2-year average, a 3-year average? What add backs am I going to kind of include in all that stuff? And, we have a whole training program on how to figure all that out. But for me, the fundamental question is this. It's all about, for me, the structure of the deal. The average multiple of profit for a US small business is between 2 and 2.5 times. So Adam, would you pay 5 times multiple for a small business?
I sure would. If I could pay for it over 10 years.
You would?
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go.
Deal structure matters more than any other element of the deal making process. And I think the the more people have a good understanding of what goes into the structure of a deal, how to be creative around it, and how to really architect a situation where everyone walks away feeling like a winner, the sooner you get a feel for that stuff, the faster this will all be. And in today's kind of uncertain times, there's ways to bridge gaps where you as the buyer or them as the seller have different opinions as to what the value of the company is. You can add earnouts, you can add deferred closing payments, you can add other contingencies in there based around how they're doing it. You can do an equity ratchet where they're actually maintaining equity up until certain points because of how they've gotten the cash. They're not giving away the whole business right up front. And so I think what's really kind of an opportunistic thing here is if you're building the right relationship with the seller, it gives you the opportunity to dive in and really understand what they're looking for from the business and from the transaction itself. And then you find a way to marry your idea and deal structure to fit exactly what they're looking for. Hey, I'm just looking for a big cash out. Great. Now I know what you're looking for. And now I know whether or not I can feasibly do it. You will not close every deal you source. It's just not the way this works. It's a shots on goal situation. You're going to miss 100% of the shots you don't take, meaning if you never start taking action, you will never, ever own a business. It's pretty simple, right? If you're not doing it, you won't do it. But beyond that, it comes back to you've got to have a number of quality shots on goals. You're originating multiple businesses in whether it's the same industry or sector or multiple sectors, but it all comes back to originating multiple companies and building a relationship with those sellers to then marry with your deal structure that works for you and works for them. I'll pay 100 times for a company, Carl, if I can do it all through an earnout, because that means I'm paying them out of upside. It doesn't matter to me. And so deal structure is far more important. People get hung up on the multiple. I will never pay more than 2.5 times for a company or 3 times for a company, or I'll never pay more than $1 million for this company, the actual pegged value. Great, I'll pay 10 million if I only ever have to pay out of the profits of the business. So de-risk it very significantly. So anyways, we've kind of walked a little bit away from the core question there, but in today's world, whether it's the uncertainty that we're living through right now or otherwise, any kind of gap you have between your expectations and the seller's expectations should mostly be mitigated through good deal structure. And if it can't be, then it's just not a deal you move forward with. It's just not a deal you close. I mean, Carl, in the last 12 years since you've been buying small businesses, how many companies have you actually looked at? Hundreds? Thousands. But you haven't bought thousands of companies, right? And so the idea there is you've got to put the work in and structure deals as best you can, but sometimes it's just not the right fit, but that's okay. You don't get discouraged. You have to reset with yourself. I'm on to the next and I'm on to the next, and I'm ready to buy the right company at a fair price with a motivated or distressed seller. That's what you're so Carl, got a question here. It's from a guy named Carl with a K. We got this in an email. Carl asked, I reside in Colorado and am not finding success with opportunities in this state for food manufacturing. If I find a business in another state, can a Colorado lawyer or CPA close the deal, or must they come from the state the business is located? So I'll just take this one pretty quickly. It's fairly straightforward, Carl. Talk to your existing CPA and talk to your existing attorney and see what capabilities they have. Most attorneys and CPAs at smaller practices are part of bigger alliances or networks that give them kind of national relationships. Oftentimes they'll be able to tap into that and say, hey, listen, over in California, if you're looking there instead of Colorado, there's these 4 firms who are all in part of the same network who should be able to provide a level of service to you. And there you've got your quasi-warm introductions to people in the state. Some firms are able to have a bigger range of impact than you even know if you haven't asked the question. So I know I use folks based here in Maryland for deals pretty much anywhere in the US, and that's not an issue. So
can I address the first part of that question though?
Yep.
When Carl is saying that he's been looking for food manufacturing businesses in Colorado and he hasn't found any for sale, then Carl, I don't think you're looking hard enough. There are tens, if not hundreds of thousands of food manufacturing businesses in the state of Colorado. And at any moment in time, there's between 6 and 7% of all businesses that exist are available for sale. So there's 36 million small businesses, Adam, in the United States. There's about 2.4 million for sale. So that's about, what, 7%? Doing the mental math. So if you've got 100,000 food-related businesses in Colorado, you know, there's going to be many thousands of those potentially for sale. So I don't know, Carl, where you're looking in terms of, if you're just only going to brokers, then, you know, you've got to pivot into other deal origination strategies. So start building your network of those deal intermediaries, start leveraging social media, go to, you know, get a free trial of Info USA, or look up the, I'm making this up, the Colorado Food Distribution Manufacturers Alliance, or whatever it is. Go get that.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, go get the list of all of those companies. You know, go and use like an Info USA or something like that to find out how big they are, and then write to the ones that are in that kind of $1 to $10 million range, and use that rapport building simple letter template that we have that gets you on average a 1 in 3 response. So I don't believe that there aren't any of those businesses for sale in Colorado. I think you've got to look in slightly different ways.
Yeah, and Carl, I think you inadvertently helped answer Geraldo's question here on YouTube. What are you doing now, considering the situation in social media, to bring more prospects into the funnel? Well, I don't know if I would limit my origination to just social media. I would be tapping into any opportunity I have. Carl's just talking about a great direct approach where you can pull information from businesses in your state or in your area, pull them down, and then reach out to them directly. Do it through letters, do it through phone calls or other means of introduction. I know in Dealmaker CEO, we go through all kinds of direct approach opportunities. In social, it's still no different, whether it's LinkedIn or otherwise. You're just networking with the types of people who are selling the types of businesses you're interested in pursuing. And so it's just a matter of really honing in on where they are and how you can actually plug into them. So Linda did have a follow-up question. She said, not great to pivot with a first deal / the inherent risk. So can you address the question revaluations on the fundamental business without our pivot? Well, Linda, I think it really comes down to, again, the deal structure. Like, I can't speak to the actual industry you're looking at because I don't know that. And even if I did, it depends on the individual company. But the valuation gap, in my opinion, is not widening. We're seeing sellers come towards us and be much more flexible with us and what we're looking for in a deal than going the other way. So we might be looking at different situations. I know if it's your first business and you're working in an area you understand and know, you should have an understanding of how the impact in that industry and business sets up based on what's happening right now in the world. You should be able to already know, even without big pivots in the industry or business, you should be able to know what you're able to do as an owner of the business in order to make it successful. So I think it just kind of depends. If you're talking with a seller and you're just too far apart and they're not willing to see eye to eye with you, I think you just continue your deal origination and find other opportunities in the same industry. I wouldn't pin all my hopes on that kind of first deal. So in terms of valuation gap, we're not seeing it, certainly in the deals we're doing. I think what we are seeing is sellers come towards us. And if you're not looking to jump into a business and completely pivot, given what's happening these days, what I would say is make sure you understand the industry, you've got confidence in it, and you understand what that industry is doing to be successful today. And then your valuation is simply going to be set up and structured in a way from a deal point to meet the seller's expectations and yours. So I would say keep on working with a bunch of different sellers and different opportunities, and you'll find one where you can match up in the middle on that. Hopefully we answered that question without too much.
Yeah, just a real quick little kind of extension to that as well is, don't be afraid to walk away from a deal where you have that kind of valuation gap or that structure gap. Because what you'll find in different periods of time is sellers will come back to you. They may reject your offer today, and then there's times when sellers come back, typically after they've been on a vacation with a family, and they go back into the business and decide they just don't want to be there anymore. And then your original offer, which they've stuck in their drawer, now suddenly becomes a lot more appealing. You know, we saw a lot of this in kind of January and early February before the coronavirus situation came upon us. You know, a lot of businesses were coming to market due to the inclement weather and just that time of year. So, you know, never burn your bridges on an offer. If it doesn't work, you know, just keep it top of mind. You know, follow up with the seller, you know, maybe every 4 weeks, and just say, hey, you know, how's it going? Have you found another buyer yet? Is your business still for sale? And, you know, keep in touch with these people, because you never know when the seller's going to come back and you know, be willing to kind of talk about the deal that you were proposing.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with what you said there, Carl. Moving on to the next question, we'll answer a couple more from the mailbag, and then we'll get back to your live questions. Kareem is a private equity professional and figured it would be a good idea to learn more about the small cap business space in which we operate. He does have a question, and that is, how are we able to convince banks to take on acquisition loans without any money down? And how is that working? So I think this is pretty straightforward. We typically look at traditional financing as the more last resort lenders in general because of personal guarantees and money in. However, we talk about it all the time, Carl. Would you rather own 100% of no business or 5% of a business?
Yeah, I'd rather own 5% of anything rather than 100% or nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And so with that in mind, if you're looking at a business, it's an attractive business, you've negotiated a good deal, and you're looking to banks to finance it, what I do is say, listen, supplement what you need in that business through finding some other source of capital and personal guarantees. There's a market out there of people who have money and are willing to personally guarantee businesses, and they'll come in, they'll be a partner with you on the business. You can be the operating partner. They can just be a silent investor. It depends on the situation, but they come in, they front whatever the cash is, they front some personal guarantees, they get a preferential return, and you still own a piece of that business, and you're able to close the deal. So the way Carl and I look at it is, I would always, always, always be thrilled to get into a business in which I own just a minimal amount of it, because I'd rather own it than not own it. I'd rather have some opportunity to make money from it than none at all. So I'd encourage you guys, whenever you're in that situation, just like Kareem's talking about, how do you get around banks needing money? You find someone else with money and you allow them to plug in. Because what's going to happen is, if you own 5% of that first business, you're now making more money. Say you've got your day job, that's paying you some money. You're just stacking effectively additional salaries on top. Can you imagine working one job, Carl, but getting paid 5 salaries?
Well, I know. That's awesome.
Right? You know, it's you owning a piece of a business, and say that business is not massive. It's only making, say, 200 grand a year in profits. Well, at 5% ownership, you should expect reasonably somewhere between 5 and 10 grand a year in distributions. Well, that's 5 to 10 grand a year in distributions you weren't going to get anywhere else, and you wouldn't get if you didn't buy the business. I don't know about you, but if someone said, hey, I'd like to pay you 10 grand a year, I'm going to take it.
Yeah, I'll buy that for $1.
And then the next deal, if you still need an investor, right? And you might work with the same investor, you might get 10% or 15% or 20%. All of a sudden, that 10 grand, that 20 grand, that 30 grand, that starts stacking up. And all of a sudden now, you've doubled your income. You've tripled your income. You have all these income streams from all these businesses you own. And the best part is, you own actual equity in the company. So in 2, 3, 5 years, you and your partners decide to sell the business, you're sitting on equity that's worth real money. So you've paid off the business in full. 5 years down the road, you sell it for the same thing you bought it for. Say you bought it for $1 million and you sold it for $1 million. Well, guess what? Because you own 5% of that company and you've paid off all the debts, that $1 million means you're getting a $50,000 check. So for each of those 5 years, you put money in your pocket, 5 to 10 grand a year. And then at the end, 5 years, boom, you've got a nice windfall of 50 grand. And now you've got some capital. You can roll it into deals of your own if they use capital, or you can continue the LBO model where you're using other people's money. You're bringing in partners, or you're bringing in banks, you're bringing in asset-based lenders. You're not putting your own cash in it, and you can live off of and enjoy the rewards of all the work.
Absolutely. So another really quick example is let's say you find a business that let's say it's doing $400,000 a year of cash flow, and you buy it for a 2.5 times multiple, say, so you're paying $1 million for that business. And let's say you agree a deal where you're paying $500,000 as a closing payment and $500,000 in kind of seller financing and earnouts. So that $500,000, let's say a bank will come and kick in $400,000, whether it's asset-based lending on receivables, fixed assets, real estate, whatever, but you're 100,000 short. If you get an investor to come in, an angel investor, say, that's got some chops and some skills and some experiences in that industry, they come in with $100,000. Don't know about you, Adam. I give that investor 50% of the deal for that 10% of the total deal value. You run that business 50-50, and then it's not now 5%. You now own 50% of this business, and you're leveraging that investor's money. If you've done all the work of finding the deal, negotiating the terms, raising the rest of the money, if somebody came to me with a really good deal and said, hey, it's $1 million deal, Carl, you need to put $100,000 into this deal, and I'm going to give you 50% of the equity, and you're going to get your money back within 6 months at least because of the cash flows this thing's going to generate, I'm going to take that deal all day long.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, comes back to the beginning. You and I would both rather own something as opposed to 100% of nothing. And so I'd encourage you guys to just think like that. Have that mentality when you're approaching deals. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to open your minds and your networks to finding partners to come in to help raise capital and make deals happen. Because remember, it's not your money. You're still doing what we call an LBO. You're putting $0 of yours into the deal, but you're walking away with 5, 10, 50% of the equity. All depends on the deal and what's needed. But that's incredible. That same example where the business is cash flowing 100 to 200 grand a year. Well, great. 50% means you're making 50 grand a year. You are stacking salaries every time you do a deal. And that is the absolute best way to do massive wealth creation. I don't know. I'd like to have 5 of them. I'd like to have 100 of them.
And you're stacking salaries that you don't have to work for after you've closed the deal. It's passive income, Adam, isn't it? You're getting paid distributions from that business without having to go into that business every day and do a whole bunch of work. So stack them up.
Make those wins happen. So let's see, a couple questions here from YouTube. Let's jump right in. Let's see. Tyrone Matheson Group has asked, as a consultant for small businesses and getting paid a fee for services, what would be an ideal strategy to transition into a consulting for equity role without any money or taking on the risk of that business? Well, that is quite literally the intent of consulting for equity, but take it away.
Yeah. So, if you're consulting for a business, if let's say you find a business, it has a problem or an opportunity that maps very closely to what your skills are, what your capabilities are. And instead of negotiating a fee, which could be a daily or a monthly retainer, then plus a success fee based on what your production is, what you financially do to improve that business, translate that into a piece of equity. Alternatively, what I would rather do is find a business that needs your skill sets, but then acquire it rather than partnering. So you might find some businesses where the owner doesn't want to sell and just needs the help. So you go in as a consulting for equity partner, do your stuff, add your value, earn your equity. Or if you find a business that desperately needs your skills to fix it, grow it, improve it, optimize it, whatever, but the business owner wants to sell, then that's a perfect business for you to buy all or part of that business, because then your skills are going to massively add value to that business as you scale.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think consulting for equity can also have the long-term impact of, say it's someone who's not ready to sell, but you're coming in to advise their business, and it's a weird way to look at it. But Carl, have you heard the story of the guy who painted the first mural at the Facebook offices?
Yeah, now he's a multi-millionaire.
Yeah, so instead of 60 grand for his fee, he accepted shares of Facebook stock before they ever IPO'd. They IPO'd and his shares were worth $200 million. Not bad for the starving artist out there, right?
Yeah.
But I think the key there is that, like, even if a seller is not looking to sell right now, or a business owner is not looking to sell, if you're adding value in their business in lieu of a fee, a cash fee, say, listen, I'd love to help your business grow. I'd like to do this and this. You know, my fee for doing that is equity in your business. You know, I'll take 5% of your company and continue adding value. And it's just like any contract. You're adding value in exchange for consideration. Once you own that equity and you've built a relationship and you're helping the business, a 5% owner is rarely going to be responsible for any of the debts in the business, is rarely going to be responsible for any of the operating concerns outside of the advice they're providing. So for them, it's mostly an upside thing where you'll start getting that cash flow. Again, we talked about stacking salaries a few minutes ago. It's the same thing. Now you're that 5% owner stacking salaries.
Stack.
And when that owner wants to sell at some point, guess what? They're going to talk to you because you're already a partner in the business and you already have the knowledge and experience and understanding of what the business is doing. And that opens up a long tail way to originate deals and bring companies into your full ownership, likely on far friendlier terms. But you've got to obviously make the time and investment. It's very much consulting for equity can be very much a job, and that you're trading time for money for a period of time. Next question here. I think this is a really good one, Carl. So it's from Dana. Dana asks, the greatest difficulty I've encountered has been in being taken seriously as a deal maker and prospective owner investor by brokers in my network alike. This has made sourcing deals agonizing. Well, first off, Dana, we're sorry it's agonizing, but let's see if we can take care of that for you. Carl?
So my first question to Dana would be, are you sourcing deals in a sector that you know, you understand, you're passionate about, and you can add massive value? If you're not, that I would suggest is why you're struggling. If you can call a broker or call anyone in your network or speak to a seller or a financier or even a CPA or a lawyer, and you really know how that industry works, you've looked at the business, you understand how it's operating, you know how to grow it, and you're really passionate about it, and that enthusiasm is going to be infectious to everyone in your network, then it's very, very easy to source deals. If you're looking in areas that you don't understand, you've not got any experience of, and you can't add massive value, then everyone's going to kind of see through that. So as I said at the start of the call, when we were talking about your entry strategy as a first-time business buyer, stay in your lane. It's the best advice I can give anybody that's buying their first business. Stay in your lane. It's really important.
Inherently, you're going to come across with so much more credibility, so much more knowledge until you've learned to speak kind of the universal language of business, which just comes from practice and repetition and all that. You know, stay in the area you truly know best. Again, that teacher example. Just focus on businesses that will match your skill sets and understandings. But anyways, hope that helps, Dana, and good luck. I know agonizing is not a place you want to be right now. So mailbag question here for you, Carl. There's this perennial debate about business brokers. and you can probably already imagine where this is going, Carl, but some deal makers and business buyers and investors don't want to touch them. We're with the longest pole in the universe, where others feel differently. What's your take on this?
So business brokers are, it's generally an unregulated industry. Anyone can be a business broker. In some states in the US, you need to have a license. To the UK and most of the US, you don't. I typically don't value business brokers that highly. However, it's like an 80-20 rule. 20% of them are very, very good. They're very credible. Adam, the broker that we've been talking to about our big construction deal that we're closing, great broker. The broker that we met in London a few weeks ago when you were last here, very, very good broker. But most of them are not great. And I think one of the challenges with business brokers is they are in the business of selling businesses to other businesses. So if you're looking at a deal that's quite a new listing, and the broker's not going to take you seriously because they're really going to be out there trying to pitch that business to, you know, the B2B community before allowing individuals like us or micro private equity firms like us to go in and buy those businesses. So my opinion on brokers is I won't look at a broker deal until it's been listed for sale for at least 9 months. That means all the trade buyers have looked at it. They've balked at the crazy valuation. I wrote an editorial that went out a couple of days ago. So if you're on our Confessions of a Dealmaker email list, you'll have seen the story. I was on a call with an owner of a web design company that was a broker deal. And his valuation, the broker had given him, was a 16 times multiple. And when I said to him, you know, why do you think your business is worth 16 times profit when on average a business like yours sells for between 2 and 2.5? He said, well, the broker told me that because we did SEO services and were a partner, we could trade at the same profit multiple as Google. And Google at that point was trading at a 16 times multiple. And obviously there's a lot of reasons why Google's one of the largest companies in the world. It's got a world-class management team. It's got a highly liquid stock that it can buy and sell. That's why mega public companies trade in the double digits, and very, very small businesses that are not proprietary, have no barriers to entry and no liquidity in their shares in their business. That's why they trade at 2 to 2.5 times. So I'm not a massive fan of brokers. I'm warming up to them a little bit more because I think brokers are starting to really understand now that their clients have got to be a lot more flexible, especially in this current time in terms of structuring deals. And I am starting to see brokers be a lot more supportive in kind of working with us as well to get the deal structured and get them over the line. But for me, brokers, they're the lowest on my poll in terms of a deal origination strategy. I'd rather work through a network, you know, the big four that we talk about: wealth managers, CPAs, lawyers, banks, and other financiers. My first thing in deal origination is build a strong network of those 4 people, and you'll get gushes of off-market deal flow. And then next, leverage things like social media, joining groups on LinkedIn, Facebook, connecting to lots of other different people as well. And then leveraging the direct approach. Brokers would be origination method number 4 on my list.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's many ways to skin the cat, and some are good, some are bad. Find the good ones, build that relationship. It's just like any business relationship. Find the good ones and kind of maximize the value they bring. Well, Carl, we're just about at the end of the hour, but I think we can squeeze in a question or two. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, let's do one more question. I've got just enough beer left I'm actually on my second. I don't know if you noticed, my 12-year-old son Josh sneaked in with a second beer for me. So I've just
Well,
got enough beer left for one more question.
It is officially 5 o'clock for you, so you're free to dive right in. So um, let's see here. Lots of people still asking about the broader coronavirus uncertainty and things like that. But I'm going to ask instead a question that Gerald asked, which is, I've heard recently that asset-based lenders want an upfront fee to work with you. Please comment on this. Any comment?
An asset-based lender wants an upfront fee to work with you.
Yeah, I've not heard of that.
Don't think I understand the question. What do you mean by upfront fee? Asset-based lenders are financial institutions that are in the business of lending money to make money. So they'll source debt at 0.5% per annum, and they'll lend it to you secured against the assets in a business you want to buy for somewhere between 4 and 9%, depending on what type of debt it is, how it's secured. So that's how they make money. I've not in 29 years almost seen a financier want a fee to have the ability to to lend me money. No, never seen that.
Yeah, I've never seen that as well. All right, we've got time for one more question, so we'll get to it here in 1 second. But before we do, as always, guys, if you're looking to start your journey, we've got in the comments, we'll have a link for you guys to click where you can find Carl Allen's business plan blueprint. It's really the 10-step process for buying a business. Beyond that, we love when you guys like these videos, share these videos. We're really excited for you guys to do that. And we love the engagement. We love the questions. So feel free to keep this up. Always try to get these questions in. Next week, this time next week, 11 o'clock Eastern, 4 p.m. UK, special live. And I cannot say it, special live. Carl and I are going to review a deal live on YouTube. We call it the red light, green light. We're going to have our lead coach who helps us run the Dealmaker Academy program. He's going to be on. His name's John. The three of us are going to look at this deal, analyze the deal, and we're gonna see what Carl thinks of it, I think of it, John thinks of it, and at the end we give it a red light, a green light, and a rating. Do we think it's going to be successful, not successful? So next week you gotta come. We'll do some Q&A, but most of it's going to be red light, green light special. You gotta be there. All right, enough pitching. Like the video, share the video. Great. Last question, Carl, and we'll get out of here on this one. Two-parter. What are your thoughts on farming, like animals, or security industries, protection, business monitoring, and otherwise? I've got thoughts on this. I'd love to hear yours.
Yeah, I love the latter. And Adam, we our private equity fund, we own a business in that space. Yep. So we like that space, and that space is booming right now with what's going on. You know, security, protection, but digital security and people security. All of the employees that are having to work from home right now, they need a lot more bulking up in terms of firewalls and antivirus and intrusion detection type stuff. So that's going through the roof. And human security, because a lot of these offices or businesses that are closed right now, they're needing security. One of my very, very good friends, Kevin, he's the ops director for a big human security company. And in the last 4 months, their revenues in the last few months are 6x what they were this time last year. Their biggest challenge is they don't have enough people to put on the ground. So I love the security stuff. On the farming side, wow, what a time period to be in the farming industry right now. Like, holy cow. I know the farming industry's had some challenges over the years. I know in the US, I remember reading the reports about the droughts and killing a lot of the crops. I know in the UK, we had the mad cow epidemic many years ago. So farming's had a lot of challenges, but I think now is the perfect time to go into farming. I was on a walk this morning, Adam, with two of my dogs, and I was where I live, out the back through the woods, I walk through my neighbor's farm, and he has a milk farm, and he's literally like snowed under right now. He can't, the amount of business he's getting with kind of home deliveries and all this kind of stuff. So farming's a great industry to get in right now. I would absolutely vouch for that.
Yeah, and I think it depends on the level of farming you want to do. I have a longer term goal. Well, and you know this, Carl. I'm an international real estate investor. I've got investments in a few different countries. And
3 continents.
Yeah, that I do. Yeah, and so the idea is, the idea for me is I want to build up some substantial farmland investments. I really like South America, I like Uruguay, and I like Colombia as possible opportunities. Some kind of breadbasket countries in South America, but farmland in general and farming in general is just a fascinating space to me. Everyone's got to eat. There's no changing the fact that everyone has to eat. So, I think it would depend on the individual business itself. I'd have to really take a look and see if it made sense or not. Is it a boutique kind of organic farm? Is it, what are they really doing? Who's really going to work it? There's kind of the institutional level of farming, and then there's everything that sits below it. And if you're operating in the below it space, who are you really serving? What are the real customers there? I'd have to really understand before I jumped in. And I say that as a guy who at some point wants to own a few thousand acres of farmland, somewhere in the world. So again, kind of hedgy a little bit from me. I'd really need to see the individual business. But anyways, guys, as always, we love doing this, and we're really looking forward to continuing to do it. Monday, we've got Mindset Monday. Off the top of my head, I can't even remember what we're doing on Monday, but check it out Monday, 11 o'clock, Facebook. Again, like the video, share the video. We super appreciate it. The guide's in the comments if you need it. But really, next Friday is the one you don't want to miss. Live, red light, green light. It is, you got to be there. You got to be there. Watch us actually review these deals.
Yeah, you've got to be there, because not only do we review the deals, we'll also show you, and we'll have the debate about what are the issues, what are the challenges, what are some of the questions that we will uncover just by looking at the numbers and the basic notes. What are the questions that you would go back to and ask the seller to find out a lot more about the business and how you would shape the negotiation and structure the deal? It's solid gold stuff. We have never, ever done this before to this public audience. This type of analysis we reserve for our exclusive Dealmaker Academy clients. So we're doing one deal, and we're going to show you how we do this. It's mind-blowing.
All right, guys. Well, until next week, we're definitely going to hope to see you there for sure. Again, as Carl said, we've not ever done anything quite like that. So we're looking forward to doing it with you and letting you in. So mark your calendars, 11 a.m. Eastern time, 4 p.m. In the GMT. We want to see you there. We want to see your questions, your comments, etc. Anyways, guys, really looking forward to next week. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And remember, you're only one deal away from changing your life. It only takes one deal.
You're right. Well, happy Easter, guys. Stay safe, stay healthy, enjoy the time with your family this weekend, and we'll see you guys soon. Until then, bye for now.